This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, we'll just I'll just say something.
He's tracking down.
Yeah, that's fine. That's something like There's Jim doing down there. Give him a second. Jim, you doing good down there?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Which one? I'll say something. Heck. All right. Like to call the Board of Supervisors to order. As always, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. We do need to adopt an agenda, and anybody there is, I assume y'all are here for fireworks permits. There's stuff in the back. There's handouts for the agenda, and then also for the squad building. Just some generalized information if anybody wants it. We do have a quorum. We do need to adopt an agenda. We do have two additional items. It's 7A, which is a fireworks permit for Rodney Frazier, and then 7B, which is a fireworks permit for Bald Top Brewing. Anybody else have anything we need to add to the agenda this evening? All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're going to have a public hearing on the rescue squad building. We also are going to do public comment now, just general public comment. We try to keep it 3 minutes. We're pretty informal about such things, but anybody have generalized public comment this afternoon? Yes, ma'am. if you tell us your name and talk to the mic. Yes, ma'am. We'll get to that one here in just a couple minutes, Shirley. Yes, ma'am. Any other generalized public comment? All right. Consent. Anybody on the interweb back there, Alan? Generalized. All right. Consent agenda. We have minutes from 6/14/22. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes from 6/14/22 as presented.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have no special appearances. We do have a public hearing on the purchase of the rescue squad building. Mr. Weekly, please.
Yes, sir. Alan, if you could, as I'm getting started, load the update that's in the back. So for clarity, as the board just mentioned, but for clarity to the general public, the board asked for a summary, if you will. So you know me, I take the long way home. I try to give you a short summary. But this is some information I'm getting ready to cover. So there's going to be some costs and some factors that went into the consideration to at least get it to this point. If you do not have a copy of what's on the screen, there are copies in the back for your review. Okay, so this is an update. Again, the public hearing tonight is for the purchase consideration from the county of the Madison County Volunteer Rescue Squad building. As some background, recently the Madison County Volunteer Rescue Squad, or MCVRS, has begun the process of liquidating their assets. Therefore, they wish to sell their current building. The county is evaluating their facility needs for the Department of EMS. The county learned of the availability of the property and began negotiations to possibly acquire the property. Upon negotiating terms of a purchase agreement, both parties have reached mutual consideration of a proposed contract. The county has advertised for a public hearing to be held on June 28th to receive input on the potential purchase of the MCVRS building. Some current factors that have been reviewed and considered. And Mr. Chairman, if you want brevity, let me know, but I'm going to read verbatim for now until you all tell me otherwise. The cost to purchase the existing squad building versus building a new EMS facility was considered. The purchase price for the existing squad building equals $500,000. That is what during negotiations. And when I say the squad, they are still active as a 501c3. Actions taken in this room last August was just to remove the license, which recognized them as an emergency medical provider. So I want to be clear on that. So they are still up and operating. Their board authorized a member to negotiate, and that's their drop dead purchase price that they have negotiated with us. In 2021, the board hired an engineering firm known as Hurt and Profit to commission a site selection study that evaluated site development at the property along Gate Road, which is the rescue squad property that they were considering constructing the facility, and property along Fairground Road, which there's a little over 30 acres that is undeveloped parkland at this time that was considered. Since the county only owns the Fairground Road property, we will only review the cost of 3 layout options to develop the site at Fairground Road. The layout options reflect repositioning the building, reposition of the building location, which would change the amount of earthwork during site development. So it could cost more as far as, cutting or fill material and so forth, for example. I put in bold print, the site development costs only included the development of the site and does not include the cost to construct a new building. So when they were evaluating at that time, it was unknown the status of the squad versus county's EMS functions. But that was site development. So that's everything, whether you're removing dirt, adding dirt, seed, straw, pavement, concrete, stormwater, and the options of public or private utilities, but it is not the building. Layout options with for number one layout option with public utilities is just over $2.3 million. If you went with private well and septic, it was estimated about 1.8. Layout option 2, and again, it's just changing the orientation of the building on a roughly 10-acre portion of that 30-plus acre site at Fairground. Layout option 2 with public utilities would equal just over 2.2 million. And with with private well and septic, you would be looking at a little over 1.7 million. Layout option number 3 with public utilities is just over 2.1 million. And with well and septic, it would be a little over 1.6. Some evaluation, the current lease space for EMS. The monthly cost the county pays for that site or that building is $3,200. Plus, we pay some additional things such as utilities of heating fuel. If we exceed, there's a monthly average of water, and if we exceed that, we pay those overages. Quite frankly, we pay the sewer because there's a well, but sewer is metered by water. The current lease, let me remove my paperclip. The current lease runs through May of 2023. So when the county executed that, I believe it was a 2-year lease agreement, at which we would have to renegotiate with the landlord on either a possible month-to-month option or a term lease. I have communicated with Mr. James just so he was aware of the purpose of the public hearing tonight, and I told him I would stay in touch, depending on discussions and if there's any action or not. So he did indicate that, if and when that time came of renegotiation, that there may be a month-to-month option. Current space layout of the current rented space requires all equipment to be housed either outside or under carports. Cost of improvements at that location, specifically improvements at the facility, and this was considering improvements that already been made. I know we did some reconfiguring and so forth, putting up walls, bunk rooms, and so forth. That becomes part of the building that would stay with the current owner. However, the current space is free of any code updates to the building. So that building as it sits does not require any updates per building code. The current rescue squad facility would need some improvements to include any code updates. I just put in an example, receptacle replacements. I did not go beyond that because, quite frankly, don't know. Staff has requested, when I say staff, I have met with the EMS team, appreciative of their time and feedback. Some of the items that they requested, if the board would look to go this direction, would be individual bunk rooms and heated and cooled space for the vehicle bays. Currently, the existing rescue squad building has 2 bunk rooms. I believe each bunk room housed 4 individuals. Each bunk room has a full bathroom. So this additional build out would look like 6 individual bunk rooms, and I believe you would do some restructuring, if you will, of the existing bunk rooms. There are 7 bays at the existing facility. 3 of those are heated via propane. No bay is climate controlled for as cooling. So that's the current status on heating and cooling based on those recommendations by EMS staff. The ability to fit a current fleet in the existing bays has been a discussion. Staff provided measurements to me of all the ambulances, as well as we've taken measurements of the 7 bay doors and confirmed the existing fleet would fit in the building. I believe your last attachment in that handout has those measurements. The second part of that handout was a GIS sketch that I printed offline, and I just penciled in, if you will, the measurements. So the tallest ambulance I believe we have is at 122 inches, and that's because some of these have this, I'm going to call it cooling equipment on top. I probably butchered the name of the equipment, but it sits a little higher at 122. So we're at 126 inches, I believe, on those reference bays 1, 2, 3, and 5. So based on those measurements, we're saying that they fit. When I say we, I'm saying they fit. 2 of the 7 bays are drive-through. The upper 3, which is on the left side of the building. So if you're looking at that handout, I wrote front of building so you can get your orientation. The upper 3 were the primary used by the squad prior. There is in what's marked Bay 3, a concrete pad that if you were to pursue this building, the squad was looking to do the same until they decided to sell. There used to be a washer and dryer located on a roughly probably 3 foot by 3 foot poured concrete pad. That would just need to go. They relocated the washer and dryer. However, 2 of the 7 bays are drive-through. I think there's some advantage there. There is a wash bay there. We do not have that now. So in summary, the board will be weighing their options of where the Department of EMS will be located. Regardless of the board's current consideration and or decision, future discussion and planning by the Board of Supervisors and staff is recommended for long-term planning of the location and the facility of the Department of EMS. And I wanted to add this item in here, members of the board, for clarity to the public, and I had some of this conversation with staff. There are other needs beyond this in the county, and I want to outline this because I think first response go together. Both EMS and law enforcement facilities and location of facilities should be discussed, that's my recommendation, to determine the desire of either a decentralized location of departments or a centralized public safety campus approach. The decision points made would then help solidify our capital improvement planning efforts. And again, just far as the attachments for the board and the general public, so you knew where those numbers come from, I printed out of the Hurt and Profit site selection study the options of layout options 1, 2, and 3, so you can see the numbers for yourself. The last page was just a summary. You can ignore to the left, that was Gate Road. We do not own that property, but at least you can see a range of with public utilities and without if you were looking to locate at the Fairground Road site. And then the last page was an attachment, was the measurements of the ambulance. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to cover any ground or any questions the board may have before you open up to the public hearing. That is the update that I have for the Board of Supervisors and the public at this time.
Mr. Gregg, do you have anything to add? Any of the board have any questions for Mr. Weekly or Mr. Gregg?
I got one
Please.
for Jonathan. So who all has been through the facility from staff?
From staff, myself, we have not had Mr. Wilkes in this building. So from staff, myself, we do have some staff that was obviously located over in that building prior to moving over. So we have staff knowledge of that site.
But Noah's been through it.
Noah hasn't been through it recently. When I want to refer to and be clear that the EMS staff that has familiarity with that building would have been at least through the time that they occupied that space.
All right.
Noah, you have anything to add back there? Please.
S1, 2.
Yeah, we got you.
All right. Good evening. I don't have a whole lot to say. I've communicated. Not working.
Speak up.
That's just-
There we are. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this morning we held our department staff meeting. I want to thank Administrator Weekly for coming by. He heard our staff's concerns. What I want to articulate and strongly articulate is this building has not been inspected. And I think before spending $500,000 that I would like to walk through it. I think having an inspector go through, some former rescue squad members that are now volunteers with us have expressed concerns of water that have leaked. There's concerns of asbestos. And to have a general idea of how this is going to work for mission. We've done some rough sketches, but at this point, and I don't think it needs to take very long, but to have folks look at it. I'd like to be part of that. I've had really good dialogue, but I've not recently walked through it with anybody. My concern is staff safety, and we respond to y'all. We want to make sure that our equipment's safe, medications are safe. That's why the bays need to be temperature controlled. And then when our folks are recovering from maybe a bad call, they have a safe place to be at. And I'm happy to answer any questions that y'all may have. but I think we need to spend a little more time with it.
Questions from Noah? Thank you, Noah.
Wait a minute,
No,
I
God
got
bless
one,
you.
Noah. So are you saying there's a possibility you could be better off where you are now?
You're not heated and aired there.
I grew up in the shed adjacent to that rescue squad.
Right.
So I'm very appreciative with where
Okay.
we're at now.
Just-
Having our vehicles inside, pro. Car
Right.
wash system, pro. And at the end of the day, as I've communicated, we're good at making things work. However, we're at a time where I think we can not rush into this and think about it.
Anybody else? Thank you, Noah.
Thank you.
All right. Y'all want to save your comments till we listen to the public? Go from there?
Yeah.
All right. I'd like to open the public hearing for the purchase of the MCRS Rescue Squad building. If you go to the microphone, keep it to close to 3 minutes and identify yourself if you would.
It's okay. Hi, I'm Eleanor Montgomery and I live in Malvern. My husband and I have lived in Madison for over 30 years, and we were glad that Madison had a rescue squad, and fortunately, we didn't have to use it, but friends of ours did. I attended the June 14th board meeting with Nick McDowell spoke about the county possibly buying the rescue squad building. Since then, there have been letters to the editor about this situation. At the June 14th meeting, I learned there was a potential for the county to buy the rescue squad building. I must admit I was startled by the possibility and questioned why was it made public for the first time on June 14th. 2 weeks is certainly not enough time for the public to be informed about purchasing the squad's old building. Excuse me, my allergies. Throughout the years, the citizens of Madison County have supported the rescue squad by donating money and time and by attending fundraising breakfasts and dinners. I don't know the law regarding the sale of the building, but I do have questions. Whose idea was it for the county to purchase the squad's building? What will the rescue squad do with the money when they sell the building? I also have questions about the rescue squad facility. The squad planned to build a new facility. I'm curious, if the building wasn't good enough for the squad, why is it suitable for EMS? What will be required to bring the building up to snuff for EMS? Also, in addition to purchasing the building, how much will renovation of the building cost? I attended all but one of the budget meetings and know how hard the Board of Supervisors work to create a lean budget and plan for the future. If the county decides to build the squad's building, buy the squad's building, where will the money come from to purchase the building? I don't see extra fat in the budget now or in the future to pay for this possible purchase and the renovation of the old building. As a taxpayer, I don't want to see my taxes increase because of a poor decision. For years, the rescue squad played an important role in providing a needed service to Madison County. Excuse me. Donating their facility to the county would be a legacy of the squad's support.
Thank you, Ms. Montgomery.
I'm Nick McDowell. I've lived in Madison for over 20 years since I retired from the federal government, and I love this place. This is a wonderful, wonderful community. The people are great. It's a beautiful place, and I'm happy to be here. But during that time, I've seen a great deal of change, and I'm happy to report that most of it has been very good. I will tell you, quite frankly, that I think we have a better administration, a better governmental administration that we have had in a long time. And quite frankly, I think this is a very good Board of Supervisors, and I've seen a lot of them here. I need to tell you that I think change is coming. And I believe that you need to be smart and forward-looking in how this change will be managed. And there's no denying that over time, everything changes. Now, you know that I'm a strong supporter of our emergency services. I have watched with great interest in how they've matured and, quite frankly, how good they are, and that we have much to be proud of. And I will tell you also, I believe our EMS department, for its size, is probably one of the best in the state of Virginia. They're absolutely first rate. And as a guy who's 80, trust me, I think that's important. Public safety is a complex undertaking that requires the coordination of multiple organizations. It also requires appropriate facilities that meet their unique needs. There is no one size fits all. That's why we're here now. We are at a crossroads, and it's time to make an important decision that will have long-term consequences. And that's why I would like to speak to the issue before us. The Rescue Squad's building at 1473 North Main Street in Madison was built in 1963, making it nearly 60 years old. It consists of 8,644 square feet and apparently sits at different levels on its lot. I think it was about 5 years ago that the Rescue Squad decided that it wanted to move out of that facility as it no longer suited their needs. The squad intended to build a new facility off US 29 and began raising money for that purpose, including over $600,000 of taxpayers' money from the county. Money given to them for that purpose has since been returned because the money was given to them contingent upon the fact that they break ground within a certain period of time, and they were unable to meet that. Last year, the squad ceased operations and is now in the process of dissolving its assets. It is a 503c3 nonprofit corporation, and as such is strictly limited in how it can dispose of its assets. Why then does the squad want to sell its facility to the county for $500,000 when it's in the process of dissolving its assets and will have to get rid of the $500,000? Presumably, they have a plan. If they do, it's not been made public, certainly not to me. And that's a matter of concern. On its face, I find this to be a somewhat strange proposed transaction. Back to the building. It's been evaluated. Has it been evaluated by a competent mechanical or civil engineer? Have its HVAC, electrical, and water systems been certified as suitable for use by a 24/7 organization? Has the building been carefully and thoroughly, got to stay on track, evaluated by EMS to determine the suitability for its purposes? Also, is the building suitable for future expansion to accommodate needs that are as of yet unknown or unanticipated but will almost certainly come to pass? Has the county given serious consideration to the possibility of future consolidation of any of Madison's emergency service functions, such as EMS, fire, rescue, and communications? This issue speaks to the possibility that a future consolidation of some of these related functions may maximize their efficiency of operations and may well require at least a partial consolidation of some of their respective facilities. Future changes are a certainty, and they must be considered in whether or not to house the EMS department and the rescue squad's building. How smart is it to spend $500,000 to buy a squad building and then pump at least another $250,000 into it, only to discover that it isn't really what the county wants or what EMS really needs? Why should the county pay the squad $500,000, that's $500,000, for anything when it's dissolving and must dissolve its assets to include that $500,000? If the county persists in the folly of buying that property, will it at least consider the option of at least using it for something else, or holding on to it and trying to sell it for a profit? I know this proposed purchase looks like a good idea, and at first glance, I thought it was a good idea. But I don't think sufficient attention or even adequate due diligence has been given to the proposal. I therefore urge you to consider that the action proposed will almost certainly have unintended consequences that will not work to the benefit of either EMS or the county as a whole. I therefore urge you to vote no on the resolution, number 2022-10, and I urge you to establish a select committee to carefully examine the current and future needs of the EMS department and closely related county functions, and to provide a carefully reasoned recommendation for your consideration. What you have before you now is moving too quickly, with too little careful consideration and inadequate due diligence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Smith from Brightwood. I've got extended remarks to you all. I'll be sending an electronic copy to Alan so he can incorporate them into the public record. So my plan is to present an abbreviation of what you have before you. I've worked for over 50 years for doing tax work and financial work for tax exempt organizations. You might think that sounds strange, doing tax work for tax exempt organizations, but it's really not. From the largest client I had in that field, I guess, was National Geographic, to a small animal shelter that needed a treasurer, so Kim married one. I've worked for these organizations, and they're exempt because they have to meet very exacting and detailed requirements filed by the Congress and implemented by the Internal Revenue Service. I've given you sites that you can look from the life cycle of exempt organizations, cradle to grave. But the one before us right now is the Rescue Squad, who says it's a 501c3 organization. And as such, it has some extremely exacting rules. The Congress of late has imposed a lot of new governance rules on C3 organizations, as well as disclosure rules. And many of them, there's some documents that must be disclosed to the taxpaying public: the bylaws, articles of incorporation, the request for a determination letter, the determination letter, the Form 990s, which is their information return. Many organizations post those on their website. The Rescue Squad does not. We're told that they're a 501c3 organization. And I found that their filings with the Internal Revenue Service on their 990s, that they are in fact a C3, and they're governed by, according to the 990, which is filed under penalties of perjury, governed by a 50-person board of members. Exempt organizations in their articles of incorporation must have a number of provisions, and the two most important, which we'll discuss tonight, are the so-called non-inurement clause. It simply must state that no part of the net earnings of the corporation shall inure to the benefit or be distributable to its members, trustees, officers, or other private persons. In addition, there are provisions dealing with dissolution that say that the organization, it's a two-part test, that the organization on dissolution must distribute its net assets, that's after all the liabilities have been paid, to a similarly situated 501c3 for exclusively exempt or charitable purposes. And that can include a federal, state, or local governmental entity. And I don't want to get into the weeds and sound like some high priest of an arcane religion, so we'll just keep it without mentioning code and reg sections. At the final disposition, if the board cannot determine how it's to distribute them, then the local court of competent jurisdiction can. I do not have a copy of the bylaws, the articles. I haven't requested them. I fully intend to. But when we look at these rules, their articles could well have been published before the Internal Revenue Service required these two provisions to be included. There's no such thing as grandfathering in the Internal Revenue Service. They don't play that game. I know it's a favorite term I've heard before these board meetings in the past, but because they existed before the requirements, they just had to amend their articles to include those provisions. So we know that on August 12th of 2021, the county issued its notice of termination of services. The board, the squad, rather than re-identify and rebrand itself to deal with the non-emergency needs of the citizen, apparently has decided to liquidate. And I use that term generically because there are a lot of specifics in how you name and how the specific transaction is monitored. In any event, this means that there are a myriad of exacting rules for the squad that they must follow, and each document and underlying support should be a part of this board's due diligence in looking at the proposed purchase of the squad's real property, because the county will be a holder in due course of the property. When an organization decides to dissolve under state law, Nonprofits have specific guidance. I'm not a practicing attorney, but it must file its articles of dissolution, set forth a detailed description of how it's going to wind up its affairs, provide a notice to the creditors and other claimants, creates and adopts articles of termination, and creates and files final documents with the Internal Revenue Service. I haven't heard specifically whether or not the rescue squad has done that. They certainly, those documents certainly should be a part of this organization's due diligence. I intend to request them. And they have to be provided to citizens, by the way. That's part of 6110 of the Internal Revenue Code. Another one of the fines you pay for being an exempt organization. But briefly, the squad has outgrown its facilities, as you have heard, and determined to build a new one. When you get that mindset, maintenance is not a thing that you really pay a lot of attention to. So I would imagine that they've been really casual on the maintenance of the existing facilities. I'm wondering if engineering assessments have been completed. That's been mentioned before. Did the squad seek a fairness opinion as to the assets they're planning to sell? Most organizations, when they're liquidating, if they're selling over 60% of their assets, require a supermajority vote, and frequently will require a fairness opinion that's done by an independent third party. I would hope that the board has requested that. Has the board secured an independent certified appraisal of the assets in the purchase as contemplated? Has the board given thought to building a 21st century facility on Hoover Ridge? I know the purchase of that property has been controversial over the years, and we certainly have the property, and it's certainly been looked at on, I don't know how in-depth a basis, but we were given from staff estimates as to doing the earthwork. As a citizens of the county, though, the really troubling thing is that through direct contributions, I mean, the door knocks when we first moved here, it was a great thing each year to have people knocking on the doors, not sending out letters for requests. But through those direct contributions, bequests, fundraisers, and indirectly through contributions made of our tax dollars by this board, not the least of which have been we've played fuel cards or credit cards for their fuel. It's been directly to the county, paid for by these taxpayers. And again, why is the organization selling the property? It could easily distribute those assets for that exempt purpose to be carried on by this governmental entity. Other people have asked what the board intends to do with the assets once what's the squad intends to do with them. Well, you've gotten a small sampling of what they can't do with them. And that is, none of those properties can inure to the benefit of a private individual. If they do that, then they are certainly at risk. I think that more due diligence needs to be done. We don't need to buy another Crigglersville. We just got rid of one. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim. All right, Ms. Coppedge.
I'm Nan Coppedge, and I live in Etlin. And I agree with most of what the people before me have said, that it seems like that building and the volunteer rescue squad was put up and operated under the tax dollars of the county board of supervisors and the many donations of the people who made pies, bought hamburgers and hot dogs at auctions, went to brunches, went to dinners, and all the other fundraising activities that they came up with. So I feel like even though it was owned by the rescue squad, it was owned by the people of Madison. I've heard some concern that they think, oh, there's going to be some kind of disrespect to the volunteers. I don't see that at all. This rescue squad was formed in the 1960s because there was a need of the people up in Madison. This building or some place like it needs to be, it's a need for the people of Madison. So I can see that as a continuing legacy for what they're doing. I've lived here all my life. I remember when the squad was founded. And it just seems like the rescue squad should be giving it to the county rather than charging $500,000. And then, of course, from things that I'm hearing tonight, y'all have to decide, do we really need it? Is it going to serve? We need to house our equipment and staff, but is this something that's going to work out for us? Is this a short-term fix? Is this a long-term fix? And then what do we do with it? So I think perhaps another discussion needs to be held.
Thank you, Nan.
You want to talk, sir?
Yes. Okay. All fired up. Hi, I'm Shirley Ammon. I live in Haywood, Virginia. I'm not going to go back over what's been said so much more eloquently than the way I could put it. So I want to thank you first for allowing everybody to come in and give their perspective on this. But I want to give my perspective as a former member of the Madison County Volunteer Rescue Squad. I was on the squad for a short while until family illness stopped me from being able to serve. So I want to say how constantly I was amazed at the generosity of this community, whether it was during their annual fundraising drive or the large extra contributions above and beyond what the Sunday pancake breakfast, all-you-can-eat breakfast cost. I witnessed many times donations in the form of bequests, in lieu of memoriams, and even after a ride to UVA or Martha Jefferson, a check came in the mail just to say, thank you for taking care of me. And on, the citizens of Madison County lavished cash and support on the rescue squad. Now, I'm not quite sure why the squad feels the need to sell this building back to the county. The remaining members of the rescue squad should be looking at what the county has donated to it over the years. I'm not going to go into all the other reasons, but I just strongly want to encourage the Board of Supervisors to reconsider this purchase. And I'm asking the remaining squad members to do the right thing and return this building to the citizens who have paid for it over and over throughout the years. Additionally, as someone also mentioned, it was acknowledged by everybody that rescue squad building was not considered adequate for future needs. And that's why the proposal to build on another piece of property was brought up and plans were being made. I don't think this would be a good use of the county's money or taxpayer funds to buy this. It's going to take a lot of renovation. I know you've done some walkthrough. As someone who's backed ambulances into and out of those bays, a lot of times they're not really adequate for the vehicles that there's some vehicles that I think exceed the door frames, or the tolerance is very, very narrow. We're talking inches, literally inches. So I'm not really sure, from my experience, that building really is adequate. The bunk rooms are not adequate. There's a lot of infrastructure that's getting old and was starting to need additional repairs. So I'm just asking you guys to reconsider purchasing that for the rescue squad and look at alternatives for long-range plans. That's what we need here. This community is growing and we need to be looking at what we can do to plan for the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Shirley.
May I?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you. Speak up. You are Ralph's wife. Anyway, I'm Joe May. I kind of live near between Edmond and Haywood, whoever the hell knows where that is. Haywood. We do. Anyway, most people wouldn't buy a house without having an inspector. So I can't believe you guys haven't got you love your consultant, so that you haven't gotten a structural engineer, somebody to walk through that. I can't believe the thing's just got to be completely right. And I think what I find most disturbing is all the millions of dollars this county has given that rescue squad. You know, whether it's they got the money from insurance companies, the $150,000 you guys gave every year, the gas, the oil, the maintenance. I can't believe they just don't give it up. I really am interested in knowing what this rescue squad wants to do with that $5 million. I'm no lawyer, I'm no CPA like Jim said. I'm no federal bureaucrat like this now, but something's not right. This stinks. It just does. Well, I'm an honest guy, most unless I'm dealing with IRS, but that's a treat different.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Other public comment? Other public comment? Alan, we got people online. Mr. Frey, come on down and talk to us.
Good walk. Yeah.
I'm Jack Frey, and I've lived here a few years. I'd just like to make one comment. We respect the decisions you folks make. You make good, hard decisions. I would like to throw out not an idea, but a thought. The location of the President Rescue Squad building geographically is almost in the center of the county. I think it's an important consideration to try to keep our emergency services. For instance, the fire department, we're not going to move. We work with them, they work with us like brothers. But I think it's important to us to consider, I know it's been mentioned, Hoover Ridge, that ground. So you got one emergency facility 3 miles from the other emergency facility. I just think that should be a consideration when you may be talking down the road about consolidating these emergency facilities. So you may be tonight that you want to push it down the road a little further, but I think the comments that have been made have been well taken. I can tell you a lot about that old squad building. I was in there when we could renovate it, and structurally it's not that bad. Need improvement? Yes. Well, look at some of us. But we just like, I just like to, but I am very interested in that our emergency services stay close together as we could possibly work things out. Thank you.
All right. Other public comment? Other public comment? Anybody else? All right, back to the board. Who would like to start here? Go ahead.
I
You've been
can
doing
certainly
notes.
start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh boy, where do I start? Okay. I got notes all over the place and I don't know, I wish they were in some sort of sequence, but I called Steve Grayson yesterday, talked to him at length. Whoops. Sorry about that. Talked to him at length about this. Steve and I were classmates, so we've known each other a long time and we could talk honestly about it. So what they're going to do with the $500,000, which would be more after they sell Gate Road 2, is they are currently in the process of setting up a foundation, which will be another 501c3 that would also have its own board, sort of like the Jim Carpenter Foundation that was formed in, when was that? 30 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. And the purpose of this foundation would be, number one, to provide scholarships to Madison folks, not necessarily coming out of high school or anything, but anybody. I mean, if you're 30 years old and you want to go back and get EMT training, or you want to become a nurse, licensed nurse or whatever, you could get a scholarship from them to do so. And so the scholarships is one thing. And the other thing is they would donate back to 501c3s in Madison for, 501c3s in Madison would have opportunity to write for grants from them. So the bottom line is, and I told Steve, I said, so you're looking to leave a legacy. And he said, yes. I said, okay, I get it. I understand. So that's where it was. And then basically the options through discussions with Steve was We have three options. We can either buy the building, we can continue to rent across the street, or we can build a new building out at Hoover Ridge. I don't like Fairgrounds Road personally. I mean, I've still got the report from last August right here. When school is in session, God forbid we have a little fender bender on Fairgrounds Road, which would jam up traffic on top of all the school traffic. I'm like Mr. Frey. I think town is an ideal spot for it. I don't like Fairground Road. Let's see. Did the squad outgrow this building? Did they decide that the building wasn't suitable? I don't know that either one of those statements is true from talking to Steve. I think that, you know, they had a vision of building a nice building out there where they could hold more events, which brought in money for them. They're all good events, you know, they're meal, you know, meals and stuff, fundraising events. So I'm not sure that that is true. Is there anybody in here that does know whether that is in fact the case, that that it was unsuitable and they had outgrown it? So, all right, let's see. Let me start ticking these things off. Currently, we have about, I'd say, Noah, $2 million worth of equipment sitting out in the weather. I'd like to get that under shelter, okay? And I was talking to Steve about that yesterday, and I asked him, so are those bays insulated? No, they're not. I said, are they air conditioned or heated? He said, no, they're heated, not air conditioned. But these units have the same thing as an RV or a motorhome, you know, the units on top, which I think you said that you set the temperature. All the plugs are in the bay, so you can hook them up, set the temperature, and so it keeps the drugs inside the units, you know, environmentally controlled. Oh, is that true on all air units? Gavin?
Yeah, would you like me to go up there or?
Yeah, please. I just, you know, that would be obviously part of our renovation needs would be to environmentally control this because of these units.
Right. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that. I explained some of that to Administrator Weekly this morning in a meeting as well when we discussed the need for climate control when we have these devices on our trucks now. Those are purely for being outside. When we used to share space with the rescue squad, they had ambulance 387 and 386 that were also equipped with a similar type of product. What happens in the summer is, remember the way air conditioning units work, they're pulling the heat out of the space. They got to put that heat someplace. So that ended up in a non-insulated bay that was already pushing 80, 90 degrees, depending on what the temperature is. And it was not uncommon for that bay to get over 100 degrees with that happening. At that point, our units cannot keep the back cold. They can't keep the drug compartment cold. And what would have to happen quite frequently is we'd have to open up all the bay doors, which created a security issue, a rodent issue, and those things during the hot portions of the day. Now, you take a look at the winter, it was the same thing. Now, in the upper three bays, they do have a space heater there. So there is a heater that's in that area. And that works fine. I don't believe there's anything in the lower bays at all, and or the upper three or two bays up the top. They kind of benefit a little bit from that heat. But overall, all the areas where those vehicles were kept and would be kept would not be able to keep up without having a climate control bay. In effect, putting us in a worse situation than we are now, where there's at least airflow in the shelters that cover our ambulances. So I hope that.
All right. So any renovations would definitely, in your opinion, we need to insulate.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to guess on this one because I know it crossed my mind, and I would think it crossed every one of y'all's minds last August 21st, I think it was, when we made the decision to dissolve the rescue squad. did not everybody walk out of this building and say, well, what's going to happen with the building? That was one of the first things that came to my mind. So in my mind, I think most people have been thinking about this for almost a year, but I do, I appreciate Ms. Montgomery saying that the first she heard that this was going to be a real consideration was June the 14th, and this is June the 28th. So I will take that into consideration. So this building has 7 bays. How many vehicles do we have to put in those bays? We got, is it five and then the trailer? And the okay, so it suits, it fits that, right? The rent across the street is high, way high in my opinion. We needed it. We paid it. I don't like it. I think personally it's exorbitant. So I would like to see that gone. The rescue squad returned $650,000 to us, to the county. It is in the bank, right, Mr. Weekly? So I think Ms. Montgomery said, somebody said, where are we going to get the money? They returned the money that we had given them, that the taxpayers, when I say we, I'm talking about y'all. When the county had given them $100,000 a year for a number of years. 150 for 4. So we got this, and plus the interest, we got that back. So we got $650,000 back, which I say we could earmark for this. Looking at the cost of going out to Hoover Ridge, which I don't like to begin with, just because of the location and the money. Over the last year and a half, we have committed, the county, the taxpayers committed $8 million for the primary school, $6 million for the emergency radio, $1.5 million for this renovation here and down the road. I don't know that there's an appetite for going out and borrowing more money, spending $1.3 million just to move the dirt around, and then another 1.5 or 2 to put in the building in a place that I don't like again. So I don't know that there's an appetite for that right now. I don't think I have the appetite for that right now. Now this, all right, that's so last one.
You're going to leave something for the rest of us. All right, go ahead. Keep going.
So this, in my opinion, is a 5 to 10 year Band-Aid. I mean, I think I heard Noah right. They'd rather be across the street than where they are now. But I look at it as a 5 to 10 year Band-Aid. And what we planned on doing, and Jonathan has brought it to us to begin considering, is do a strategic plan and see what we want to do down the road. So that's the way I look at it. That's all I got to say about that.
There you go. Very good. Who would like to cover the 2 items Cardi left for us? Please go ahead.
I agree with Cardi in the sense that building a new facility right now is not reasonable. And the reason I say that is I called Prince William. We're not Prince William, thank God. They are spending, without purchasing property, they're spending $8.5 million to set up a new facility. I do think this meets our needs for now. I do think we need to look towards the future, but I'm also inclined just to wait. It feels rushed. I came into this with the intentions to vote yes, and I mean, I'll tell my colleagues I've just changed my mind sitting here listening to the people. So doesn't have to be a wait for months and months, but let's do our homework. So that's how I feel about it.
Comments,
Please.
please.
there's several issues here, and then one of the underlying issues that we've had to grapple with as a board is that the opinions regarding the rescue squad either not giving the building or whatnot. And from the supervisor standpoint, that's beyond our control. And I think that folks need to, if they have questions or they have challenges to rescue squad policy, they need to go to the rescue squad. We can only control things on our ends. And having gone through that process, I view the purchase of potential purchase of this building as we're buying it from any other property owner, keeping the emotions and whatnot out of it. I think we need to be a little bit more objective. Now, there's the three different options that we've had. I've been considering them. The current option, we're paying $38,400 a year to rent the facility down the road. I think the contract comes up for renewal next year. Okay, I can guarantee you if we're locked in there, the rent's going to go up. I'd almost bet anybody $100 on that. So that will be an enhanced expense. We are facing a more rapid rate of deterioration in our capital rolling stock by the fact that it is outside. More than likely, we're also spending more in utilities to keep those vehicles cool that are sitting outside. Looking at the squad building, I have some concerns about it too, and I mirror the concerns of many of the folks who've talked here tonight. Is that an optimal facility? Absolutely not. Would it be adequate? Probably so. Another plus is that we have the money to buy it. No tax increases, no borrowing. So those are some things to bounce around with regard to that building. It was never intended in our planning for that to be the permanent solution, which is going to lead me to choice number 3, which has been discussed. And I thought a lot about this, particularly in light of current economic conditions and some of the other commitments that the county has. But that's to build a new facility. And I know that right now the land that we have available for that is out at Hoover Ridge. I know that EMS would favor a facility there because it is close to the schools and athletic events, which would give them a much faster response time. But having said that, the county does not have a strategic plan currently for EMS or fire and rescue or law enforcement. And there's been different ideas. Do we have a centralized consolidated campus? Do we go to a satellite distributed model? Well, regardless of how we choose, those are going to be very, very different capital requirements plans. So that would have to be resolved first before we could even take any kind of planning steps as to what we would want to do for a new facility. The other thing that worries me about building a new facility, aside from the fact that we don't have a plan in place, is that there's no way around it, folks. We're going to borrow the money to build it, and we're going to raise your taxes to make the payments. It's, the site work estimates $1.6 to $2.4 million just for the site work. That was in last year's dollars. What would it be now? How much more for the building? I could honestly not see us getting away with even a minimal facility for $4.5 million. Now, we have to think about some of the other commitments that we have. And here's an example. Next year, we have to start spending $280,000 a year on our emergency tower maintenance. We don't know what the financial ramifications are of the RSA dissolution at this point. Furthermore, we have a high probability that we're facing a recession in this country in a very short order of time. I don't want to put the county or county taxpayers in a financially disadvantageous position in light of those factors. So these are all things that we need to look at. I can't see I will not support building a new facility now. Future, maybe, but keep in mind, borrowed money and raise taxes. Just a little perspective, that $280,000 we're going to have to start paying on those tower maintenances, that's 2 pennies of real property tax rate. So when we start looking at spending this multi-million dollars to build a new facility, and someday we will have to do that, but not now. We don't even have a legitimate long-term strategic plan in place. So we're left with 2 options. And the reason is we really don't have any other options as far as a facility that can facilitate our EMS service. We either stay where we're at, or we buy the rescue squad building and we put minimal upgrades into it. I do have some questions about some of the costs there. I think that they could end up being very significant. How significant, I don't know. Keep in mind also, though, that if you did buy it, it will have some residual value when we get done with it. If nothing more, the minimum would be the property value that the building sits on. So these are some things that I have looked at in this process. Again, aside from the issues with the rescue squad, we can't control that. We're dealing with an organization that has made its decisions. We have negotiated in good faith, and that's where we're going to leave it. As a supervisor, that's where I'm going to leave it. Now, I will suggest, in light of the comments tonight, that I would recommend to the chair that we table this consideration, not indefinitely. I'd like to have a specific time frame, but I would like to table this pending further due diligence research on the board's part. So I'm going to move that we table this, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's on the floor.
Mr. Chairman, very quickly,
I'll second it so we can go into.
Now discussion, please, Mr. Chairman.
an alternative to tabling it would be to suggest an amendment to the contract that would include a study period of some period of time, which would enable the county to conduct its due diligence, enter the contract with an out clause after 30, 60, 90 days, whatever it might take, so that we can get some professionals in there to determine what I'm going to call the downside risk. Or, tabling is likewise an option.
Any other discussion? All right.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would be willing, on advice of council, to withdraw that motion and reintroduce another motion. I would move that we follow Mr. Gregg's advice on the possible renegotiation.
To sort of clarify that, so that would be to include a provision in the proposed contract for a study period of how many days?
We're about 60, Doug.
60 days?
We need a, yeah, we're getting this parliamentary procedure super fun. A motion's on the floor and seconded. Are you amending your original motion, Mr. Jewett?
I would be withdrawing my original
All right.
motion.
Okay, I'll second his withdrawal.
All right. I don't know where that leaves us.
I think that puts you in okay shape.
All right, then there we go. We're back to generalized discussion.
Another way to do it would simply be to vote on Mr. Jewett's.
Yeah.
If it does not pass, then
I
we're
think
back
that
to the
is the
original.
better direction. From the original motion to table, the purchase of the rescue squad building. I think that's where we're really at.
Yep.
Let's vote on that, and then we can see where we go from there.
Okay.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Anyone abstain? All right, that motion's gone. All right, now, Mr. Jewett, are you making another motion, or are we still just generally talking?
Well, that would be my desire. If the board would like to have some further discussion, that would be fine as well. What's the pleasure of the board?
Ms. Hoffman, do you have something to say?
Well, practically everything's been said,
Hey, a bunch, yes, ma'am.
but I have met with Steve Grayson a couple of times, talked to him, asked him to sell the building cheaper, even $5,000. They could do it if they wanted to. They will not do it. So we have no option but to pay the $500,000 if we want that building. I'm not in favor of waiting. I think we need to go ahead with this. It's going to take renovations. It may take $250,000. It may take $250,000. I don't know. But it's not falling down. I've been through it. The building's not falling down. It needs some cosmetic work. It needs some changes to it for offices and all that no one of them going to need. And we keep getting asked, why can't they give us the building? They cannot give us the building. They cannot give it to us.
How come?
Because isn't it, Sean, that we're not a 501c and they have to give their money to a 501c?
No, they
Like
can't.
organization.
Hold on. Mr. Gregg, please.
Ms. Hoffman, they can't give it to another government organization or to a 501c3. So they do have the ability to give it to us if they choose to. The other point related to that, however, and you've already referenced it, is the fact that you have discussed that possibility with Mr. Grayson, and he has indicated that the rescue squad remaining members are not inclined to do so.
No, they're not. They're absolutely adamant that it's $500,000 or it's nothing. And if you have concerns on what the squad's doing with the money that they're going to get, call them and ask them and meet with them. We don't, it's not our place to tell them what they can do with their money. But I'm in favor of moving ahead with this. I think we cannot go to Fairground Roads. It's going to cost a fortune. I've had phone call after phone call, and when I talk about, hey, we can raise your taxes if you want to do this, but I don't think anybody wants to do this. And I don't want to do it. So I think we need to move ahead. I'm not in favor of postponing it.
Yeah, excuse me. Everything has basically been said. We do have $650,000 that came back to us, and that is with interest. That is not designated specifically for anything in the budget currently. The purchase price of 500 and put another 150, hopefully, chances are it'll be more expensive to renovate. That's where we're at. The fire company has an exceedingly strong volunteer base. They have a great facility. They have active members. The idea of a centralized location for public safety, with that facility, I don't see happening anytime soon. Orange County just did one. They spent $14.2 million on that facility. The rescue squad, the comment has come up about, well, did they outgrow the facility? I don't believe they did. I think we actually saw that they did not by the decertification of them. It's unfortunate that we are in this predicament that the Madison taxpayers have put their heart, their money, everything into the squad. And the squad leadership wants to go a different direction. That is a sad statement. Everybody wants to do a facility inspection. Understood. The building's not perfect in any way. Does it need work? Yes, it does. Will it work for us for 5 or 10 years and then have a different purpose down the road? Probably. We just sold Thrift Road for $2.25. The first time that Madison County has sold something for a reasonable price. Normally we don't. Fairgrounds Road, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, had a fender bender right at the school board office. It basically shut down Fairgrounds Road. Mr. Weekly currently is talking to VDOT about how to potentially expand the shoulders on that road. A big project. We just finished the school renovation at the primary school. We talked about that for 3.5 years. It's a long process to build a station out there at Hoover Ridge, let's just say, and everybody agrees it's not the right location with the current setup. We're talking 4 years from now. And the cost will certainly go up. Talking about the inspection, it would be nice to have the 90-day or 60-day period of review. The squad has stated that it is a sale as is. We previously did a site selection study between Gate Road and Hoover Ridge. Where could we put this facility? Spent $20K on that. You know what we figured out? Nothing, really. It isn't even an option now. Government spends a lot of money just on consultants, and we get a ton of information, and then we realize that this is Madison County. We probably know what we're doing in the first place. Just wasteful. Is there needs? Talking about the bays, Mr. Helm back there. Probably going to have to do some central air in some of that. Probably going to have to insulate it. Probably going to have to change some doors so fumes don't get back into the main living quarters, let's call it. I like Madison being like the hub of where everything comes out of, the town of Madison. It's important. The sheriff's not going anywhere. He likes where he's at. Being closely related to the court is important to him. We know we have some space issues there. That's going to come up. There are a lot of needs in Madison as far as capital that have been pushed off and pushed off. It took 40 years to renovate this complex. 40 years. We had this facility here. We spent, what, 1.3?
Yeah.
We now have an admin complex with room for expansion right here. Other counties have spent millions of dollars on this. We kind of did it the Madison way. I'm very satisfied with it. I think we can do studies. We can put in a study period. We can do all of this, and we're still going to be back to the same exact place. We may have some more information. I'd rather just get this thing just going. I mean, we've listened to all the comments, and I appreciate them. I really, really do. It's unfortunate that we're here today. They could sell it to us for $1 and say, best of luck. Fire folks, they've all said, when we can't do our mission, we will come to you with a ring of keys and say, whatever we can do to help. And that is massively appreciated. Here we are right now. So, what do y'all want to do?
Well, in talking to Steve yesterday, Mr. Chairman, I mean, he was adamant, this is as is, come hell or high water, it's as is.
They're not gonna change their mind.
Yeah, they're not going to change. We've got 650,000. There's 500 for the purchase and $150,000 to go with whatever's necessary. I think $150,000 will go a long way. So I guess, Mr. Chairman, I think I'm going to move to approve Resolution 2022-10 to buy the Rescue Squad building.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Do we have any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Vote passes. Resolution 2022-10 is passed. Thank y'all for coming.
She gonna stay. Everybody has nothing. Well, yeah, I mean, the building's not selling. Does it need some cosmetic stuff? Because they've let it get shabby.
All right.
She's not gonna stay and listen to you on that.
All right. We do have some other business this evening. Thrift Road update. Mr. Gregg.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. An issue exists with the title company. They want us to run a different notice of public hearing. This has to do with, I believe, confusion on their part of the fact that we are a county as opposed to a town. Nevertheless, their title company is insisting on this. So we will hold a public hearing at our second meeting in July. The advertisement is set. It's just a matter of getting that done. Once we've taken care of that, we should be able to go to closing pretty quickly.
Anybody have any issue with going to public hearing, second meeting in July? Please, let's proceed. All right. Krugersville School property update. Mr. Weekly?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So that contract has been fully executed with a date representative of June 15th. Why is that date important? Well, one, you sold the property, so that's one thing. But there are some timeframes that are built in. There's a 90-day period of review. Quite frankly, a lot of that review, Mr. Shapiro has already done. We've unloaded all the files in advance. He's been out to the site twice prior to execution of the contract. So what I want to report on is an update. There's a requirement in the contract of $5,000 earnest deposit, such as for escrow purposes. Mr. Gregg has received that. We took inventory of that, and the treasurer has booked that for that purpose. Closing is a relatively, the date was listed, I believe, September the 14th, but that will be through some other steps. And those other steps, there's a 60-day period that he's required to file his rezoning application from the date of execution. So that would make a date of August 14th. We believe that rezoning application will come before the Planning Commission on July 20th. Early indications when we were at our development committee meeting, Mr. Shapiro was present and his attorneys were online, is that they will be looking to file as an M1. That does seem a little odd, but talking to Ligon, there's definition in there for mixed-use buildings on one parcel, and it does list uses such as restaurant, lodging, event venue. So it seems like it could be a natural fit. So that will be teed up for the July 20th workshop. So we feel he will meet his 60-day threshold. After rezoning is approved, then I believe it's 30 or 31 days then to close. So we are tracking that actively as we move along in the process.
Any questions for Mr. Weekly on this? Very good. Resolution 2022-10, we just did that. Is there anything further we need to go through on that one?
No, sir. Mr. Gregg has the contract. I believe the only thing he added was a approved to form section, but the resolution you had authorized you to sign the final document. But Mr. Gregg, unless I'm incorrect, is that the only change, sir? We're not putting you on paper.
All right. Okay.
I hate to see the article about me next week.
Thank you.
The next one, Mr. Chairman, I believe you will.
Yeah, I'd
step
like to
down.
abstain for number 6. Mr. Yao?
Yeah, so Center Fit Farms has applied for a fireworks permit. I guess it's pretty straightforward. It's a form that's just a standard template. So there's a discussion. Here's some discussion or entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the fireworks permit for Center Fit Farms.
Second.
Very well. We have a motion and a second to approve the fireworks permit for Center Fit Farm. Is any further discussion? Very well. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. And Mr. Gregg, I think probably I'll sign that as, I'll sign that.
Correct.
Okay. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you. We have 3 other fireworks permits in front of us. We have Vance Tree Service, Rodney Fraser, and Bald Top Brewing. I think we probably consider all 3 of them at one shot. Anybody got any issue with that?
Nope.
All right. What do y'all want to do on these 3?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve fireworks permits 7, 7A, and 7B.
Second.
All right. Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. VSAP Policy Board appointment. Mr. Weekly?
Yes, sir. We received notice in the letters in your packet of a policy board appointment. VSAP sent this requesting that Mr. Early be appointed to the policy board. He was appointed. This is basically a request for reappointment. Mr. Early is thankfully and willingly to serve again if you so choose to reappoint.
And the letter said he has been an active and valuable member of this board.
Do they meet often? I understand they don't meet very often.
I do not know.
I
how
can't talk
frequently.
about the body of work
I've
other
never
than he's
been
doing
invited to
excellent.
serve on their board.
a couple of years ago.
Very much.
I did until the annual report comes out, which is in your inbox if you haven't checked, by the way.
I generally appreciate having somebody apply for this. So it's a real win. Let's go.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, I move that we reappoint Jeff Early to the VSEP Policy Board.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Study request, Hurt Hollow Road.
Thank you. Citizens stopped by my office last week complaining about a lot of speeding along Hurt Hollow Road. I asked them to specify if it's just a segment or the whole area. They had requested for the board to consider a speed study for the whole segment, so from Courthouse Road all the way through the end of state maintenance. You have recently, I think a couple meetings ago, approved 3 of these similar. Speed studies are what they say. They review them and look and see what's posted, what's not posted, and VDOT comes back and lets you know that information. So should you decide to direct me to do so, I'll contact Ms. Shepherd either tonight or tomorrow and make that request.
Is it more expensive also to get a traffic count on this road?
I will ask. I don't want to say for certain that they do that already. It's possible. I think that traffic count is part of that speed study, but I will ask. It makes sense because the update, if you look at your 6-year plan, there's a lot of roads in the county that may have a 2011 or 2007 date on the last traffic count. So we certainly make sense while they're there.
Yeah, let's.
Give Benny a pad of paper and pencil.
He would probably sit there and do it.
Too fast.
He's
Oh.
got time.
All right, what do y'all want to do on Hurt Hollow Road? Speed study and
Traffic count.
the speed study and traffic count. It's a bustling metropolis up there.
Okay.
Let's do it.
I'll inform Ms. Shepherd. Thank you very much.
Any other new business? All right, Jonathan, RC update.
Thank you. I set in, I think it was late last week, a webinar with REC. I forwarded all board members of an upcoming webinar on Thursday. Should you like to attend that webinar, it will be similar information that I received. The topic of discussion was supply chain disruptions. And we all know that we deal with that in our everyday lives. Some of you are tradesmen. You certainly know that firsthand. And, what they wanted to communicate, one, there was a common theme, patience by localities. While certainly when they, get into repairing things during storms, if they don't have inventory, they'll be pulling from other co-ops. And that's a good thing about a co-op. They help one another out. We've had that here and recently in Louisa and Fauquier counties that were hit last week pretty hard. But then it becomes a supply thing about what about new construction? And I can tell you whether it's transformer, poles, they're going to view occupied space versus unoccupied as they're having to make decisions and scheduling for construction and so forth. So again, patience. We don't know how long that will occur. They did say on that webinar or on that call that they have reached all the way out to the White House, that they have talked to state and federal legislation to include making contact with the White House. I do not know if that changes anything. We hope, but does it start to affect if you had multiple storms throughout a summer season? Maybe it could. I asked them, would there be regular updates so I can keep this body informed, and if there's any messaging to the public, that way I can put it out. They said they would do that. So right now, this is information. This isn't trying to scare the general public or the board, but it's a concerning situation. In talking with some of the recent HVAC contracts, for example, some chillers are 52 to 64 weeks. Transformers could be a year. Or beyond. That's real life. So we don't have a lot of commercial development per se. We are kind of upticking with some new construction on homes. But again, this was about supply chains disruption. As things either worsen or improve, whatever updates they have, I'll certainly can email the board, or if you want it as an old business, we can do an update as we go along. But I would encourage you, if you have time, if you want to sit in Thursday, fine, but you're essentially going to hear what I just mentioned to you now.
Any questions, Mr. Weekly, on the REC update?
Does their EMS and Gavin and them, they need to know what's going on?
They're aware. Gavin, not to, oh, he's gone. Well, I can say this about him. His head was probably on it. Gavin, I know we positioned him under NOAA, but his function of EM, I mean, we have a lot of direct line communication. So let me just give this totality. He's aware of this. Even if it's a small firework permit, I shove all that through his offices because he's the conduit from my office to all first response. He's the conduit when it comes to planning with state agencies, or he worked directly with Lindsey Watson, who's I think it's director of public affairs or something like that for REC. When we had that storm and people were out, he was actively giving them names of those who are in need, whether they're on dialysis or whatever, to get them on first. And that did occur in this county. So yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, discussion. Mr. Weekly, tell us about the Todd and meal tax remittance.
Thank you. And Stephanie had asked, you need to be here tonight. I told her no. I believe we can do the lifting. Stephanie and so the treasurer and commissioner of revenue has shared they would like to align the transient occupancy tax remittance date known as TOT and the meals tax, which in our ordinance is referred to as the food and beverage tax. Align those two remittance dates. And Sean and I were on a call with them about this discussion. And it started with transient occupancy tax, just update the code. So it would still require a public hearing to amend and change the date from currently the 15th of the month. They would like to see it the 20th because they wanted to align with their meals tax remittance of the 20th. You dig through here, our forms on meals tax had the 20th on them, which we hand out to people, but the 20th doesn't show up as a remittance date in our ordinance. So we would like to, certainly we agree with the alignment of the dates, but the date needs to either A, be changed for the top, and it needs to be cited in the meals tax or the food and beverage tax ordinance. So what Sean and I would recommend is, since you're having a public hearing already on the 26th for another matter, hold a public hearing the same night for this consideration. So with the top minor change, 15th to the 20th and some language. I believe on the meals tax, Sean, there might have been one or two paragraphs in that section where there may be reference to the actual remittance date. And then if you fail to by this date, add that in that section. So there's an email that I included, kind of song and verse, what I recommend, or what Sean and I talked about to the treasurer and the commissioner as possible changes. Sean, is there anything you'd like to add, sir?
I don't think so. It's just a kind of a technical glitch. This will save some of the accounting time and bookkeeping time that the treasurer's office has to do, because a lot of people who, have restaurants also have, lodging, and it would be easier for those businesses to submit everything on the same day. And likewise, it would be easier for Stephanie's staff to take all of this in at the same time. And we'll work on the language just to, make sure that it's consistent. I was not aware of this form discrepancy, but we can take care of that as well.
We also have any questions on this? Y'all want to go to public hearing on the 26th? Let's go.
Okay.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, public comment. Public comment. Are they're rolling in there, Alan, on the technology? It's you and me.
30 people looking for fireworks.
Well, they're too late. All right. No public comment. We don't have a closed session this evening. What do y'all want to do?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank y'all.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Yeah, I got it. I'm almost done.
Once you pull that one side.